What is good? I'm Esoteric Essa, your host here today. Welcome to the Podcasting with Purpose for Profit, how to create and implement a powerful podcast with intention, brought to you by the Soul of Business Summit. As a reminder, you can always connect with me on social media, esoteric_Essa. Connect with me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Patreon, where I have a wonderful, strong community of Patreon members. And you can also book a one-on-one spiritual business coaching session with me if you're ready to launch your podcast or expand your podcast, or better yet, if you're ready to make a profit off your passion, aka your podcast. So don't forget to go to www.soluminati.com. That is my website where you can book a one-on-one service with me. I am Esoteric Essa. I am a Latina, first generation. I am Mexican, Peruvian American. And among many things, I love podcasting. I am just a content creator in general. I do a lot of one-on-one work in the spiritual community. I do a lot of writing on those topics such as astrology and brujeria and decolonial spiritual work. I launched my blog, Soluminati, back in 2017, and that grew into my podcast. I launched my podcast, Better Work Bitch, which you see the logo here on the screen, back in 2018, and I have been podcasting since then. We are now on 8 seasons of the podcast. When I first started my podcast back in 2018, I had no idea I would be creating a profit. I had no idea it would really get to this point where I'm sitting here with you talking about my podcast, the journey of podcasting, and encouraging future and current fellow podcasters to continue their purpose. So let's go ahead and get started. Once upon a time, what's the background story? Storytelling. So what you see in front of you is my podcast, Better Work Bitch. That is the logo. You can stream my podcast across all streaming services. But once upon a time, the podcast did not start as initially wanting to create any sort of financial income, really. It came from the heart. It came from this idea of, I don't see anyone in this space talking about the topics that I want to talk about. And in terms of my background story, I work in the spiritual space. I am a practitioner and a content creator in that space. And I noticed that there wasn't a audio directory talking about the spiritual journey from a Latina's perspective. And furthermore, I realized there's so much opportunity to bring on board the different practitioners and healers that I personally would come across in my journey and host them. I wanted to host other practitioners, other healers on my podcast to talk about the work we did together, to talk about the work that they are doing, and to hopefully bring light into this very taboo stigma society, right? Anything beyond colonized religion, growing up Latin, Latinx, Latina, Latino, is definitely taboo. We don't do that. We don't go get our cards read. We don't do hypnotherapy, right? So this was sort of me doing exploration and bringing my findings from the exploration on this journey to my public, to my audience. And I was inviting them in on my journey. That's how I personalized it. But I was inviting them in to resources as well. I was inviting them in to go ahead and create tangible, practical steps on their end. And that is really what I attribute a lot of the success of my podcast to. Is it wasn't necessarily about me. I gave hints about me, right? I gave insight about me and my journey, because people do ultimately want something very personalized. People want to connect with you. They want to connect with your personality. They want to connect with your energy, because your brand advocates, your listeners, your audience, your supporters, your community, the reason why they back you is because they feel a connection to you. When they see you, they see some sort of image within themselves being mirrored back to them via you. And that is what makes it so important to make sure that the podcast is personal, but adding resource So my podcast is also very educational and very informational. People don't want people to talk at them all day, every day, but at the end of the day, they do want substance. They do want information. They want to expand their philosophy, expand their ideas. And that's what I do with my podcast by bringing on very credible people, notable leaders in the society, bringing on personalities who are accomplished that can help other people listening tap into that same success or create success within their spiritual healing, their spiritual journey. So, all that being said, when it comes to you figuring out your podcast, remember that podcasting is simply storytelling. If you are a wonderful storyteller, you are going to excel. But guess what? Maybe you don't really resonate as a storyteller. That is absolutely fine. Remember, there's always someone out there for you. You just got to figure out what is your story. What is your topic? And when you figure that out, you then start attracting the community and the listeners that you want to cultivate and connect with. So remember, at its core, podcasting is all about storytelling. So start practicing. Start practicing becoming a storyteller and getting more comfortable with the personality trait of a storyteller. Now let's get started. You're here because you want to learn either how to begin your podcast, or you already have your podcast and you're looking to expand it and create profit. So whether you're just in the beginning stages and you haven't launched it yet, or you're getting ready to launch, or you've already launched, or you're an OG in the game, you're going to get some sort of valuable information here today with me on how to create your passion to purpose. So let's get started. What is your story? I need you to ask yourself that. What is your story? Who are you? Who are you at your core? What are you becoming? What are you interested in? What do you love? What do you not love? What are you obsessed about? What is your story? It doesn't matter if you're someone who lives in Montana, or if you're someone who lives in New York, if you're someone with a huge social following, or you have no social footprint as of yet. Let's get started with what is your story. My podcast, when I started it, really the ideation phase was, well, what's my story? My story is I'm this Latina navigating this spiritual space that is mostly New Age dominant, mostly whitewashed dominant. And I want to connect with other POC people who look like me on the same journey. And I want to connect with practitioners who are POC and bring that to community who are walking a parallel journey as me. And so that could be for you in areas of interest of fashion or food or comics, entertainment, crime podcasting, crime investigation, you name it. So getting started, let's go over these points here. Saturation of the market. You might be saying, well, I really love celebrity gossip, or I really love crime investigation, or I really love comedy. And there are tons of podcasts already out there in existence in this space. I want you to tell your ego that doesn't matter. No matter how many thousands of podcasts are in your category, in your field, don't worry, because your podcast is going to be different. It will stand out. Next, authenticity is your voice. Truly, we are using your voice to speak. We are using your voice to storytell. And so how do you stand out among saturation, right? Amongst a very diluted market where there's tons and tons and tons of people taking up this space? You got to go back to what makes you authentic. Well, what makes you authentic is your story. What is your story? Your story are things that you are passionate about. What are you obsessive about? What do you love about this topic? And through there, that becomes your purpose. And your purpose then becomes individualized and it becomes different. And that's how you stick out. And then lastly, create at your pace versus capitalism. You'll see on a lot of blogs that you must create podcast episodes on a weekly basis or on a daily basis if you want to be taken seriously, or if you want to land those brand deals. I personally have been there and done that. I was creating on a weekly basis, sometimes up to 2 to 3 episodes a week. And I was pumping them out, honey. And in the beginning, you're inspired, you're excited. So you got no problem pumping it out. But the thing with capitalism is, even when it comes to our passions and when it comes to our purpose, we are told in American society that you must do, go, 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 accomplish, and continue excelling, because the next achievement is better than the one you just achieved, and the current moment is no greater than the future. When it comes to being a content creator and creating with integrity, creating with intention, your ideation process, meaning what you start creating and envisioning for your podcast and creating the episodes and the mission behind it and the structure behind it, you must go at your own pace. Don't worry about all these timelines of you got to do a weekly, you got to do a daily, and it has to be on every Monday at 9 a.m. Well, guess what? Things come up. And sometimes you're going to miss that deadline. Sometimes you're not going to be able to post in that same frequency. So go at your own pace, because if you start performing according to capitalism, you will get burnt out and you will feel disconnected. The podcast will no longer feel aligned. The content won't resonate. People will start feeling energetically disconnected because you are energetically disconnected. So intention is ideation. Go back to your intention. Why am I creating this? Why do I want to create this? Why does this matter? And why should I create according to my own accord? The creation process, aka this is why I get loud. This is where I'm gonna start being your little cheerleader and scream at you with love. You gotta implement versus imposter syndrome. Now you have this great idea, you're super excited, you're gung-ho, and then you say, well, I want to talk about this topic, or I want to go into this space, but I'm not quite an expert. Or maybe I am an expert and I still have imposter syndrome. And then you pigeonhole yourself, and then you get stuck at a plateau, and then you freeze, and then you don't know what to do, and then you just get overwhelmed, and you're like, oh, forget it. I'm not going to post this week. Oh, forget it. I won't post this month. Oh, forget it. I'll wait till next year. To that, I say, just implement, just go for it. So let's focus on the first one here. Logistics last. What do I mean by that? Logistics are important. You need structure, you need frequency, you need an idea, you need an overall vision of what your storytelling behind the podcast will be. And then you also need an overall idea of, okay, I want to record. I feel better recording at night, or I feel better recording during the day, right off the bat in the morning. I feel fresh. I feel spunky. The ideas generate. That's great. Let's just get a very bare minimum system in place. I don't need you going crazy and saying, well, I want to create a podcast and now I need to purchase the most expensive microphone. I need to start renting out a studio. I need to pitch my podcast to sell it to a network to house it for me. No. Let's reel it in, baby. Okay. Logistics last. All we need to do is get started with practicality. What are the basics of podcasting? You basically need something to record your voice. And then you need to figure out a hosting system. Where are you going to host it? What website are you going to use to host? Is that YouTube? Is that SoundCloud? Is that Libsyn? What hosting platform are you going to upload your podcast to? Design your logo, then design your graphics, but you don't need to get crazy. Next, put your heart on blast. What I mean by that, because no matter how janky your first few seasons might be, like mine, what resonates through to your audience is your heart. You could have the worst setup, as long as it's not too staticky and you don't sound really muffled like this and I can't hear you because you're mumbling. Okay. But if it's not the most clearest audio, but it's still clear enough to listen, if you don't have money yet to hire an editor or someone to, get rid of background noise, right? As long as we don't have constant sirens and constant dogs and constant babies in the background, people are still going to resonate with you. They're going to go hard for you because they feel your heart. So put your heart on blast. Again, that's going to come from your passion. What are you passionate talking about? And just let that passion carry you through every episode. And then lastly, invest as you grow. When I first started, I mentioned this not too long ago, and I mentioned it earlier with Vanessa, our host, Biz Bruja. I started recording literally off my iPhone. This was before the idea of recording on my laptop came through. I was recording on my iPhone in my closet because I had read online that that's a great idea. A lot of people do that. And it's true. The first 2 seasons, I would go in my closet and I would fill it up with pillows and blankets. And I would have my iPhone literally this close to my mouth. And I would be very careful with my breath and my language. And, if you listen back to the first 2 seasons of Better Work Bitch podcast, and now you listen to the most current seasons, you'll be able to reflect back on my growth as a creator, my growth as a storyteller, my growth as a podcaster, my growth as I learned how to understand myself better as a storyteller. So invest as you grow. I wasn't able to get an actual microphone. My very first Yeti, I have about 4 microphones now, but I'm 8 seasons in, baby. But my first Yeti microphone, I wasn't able to get it until a whole year into podcasting. So invest as you grow. Don't overwhelm yourself immediately by saying, I need to be perfect. Purpose equals profit. So we're here because we're like, how are we going to create profit, baby? Well, first of all, fulfillment is the number one profit, but I get it. Fulfillment does not pay the bills. So fulfillment becomes financial abundance. As long as you continue feeling connected to your podcast, to your storytelling, and allow yourself to branch out, allow yourself to journey into different subgenres and subcategories through your topic. Allow your audience to go with you on that journey. They're interested in growing with you. Remember, you don't have to be so rigid. You don't have to be too structured. People want realness. People want genuineness. People want authenticity. People want to hear you mess up sometimes. Because again, that humanizes you and that makes them resonate with you and that allows them to connect with you. So how are we going to start creating profit here through your purpose of podcasting? The mission of the podcast, first and foremost. Example, my podcast. My mission of my podcast was my healing, me, self-care, self-love, self-healing first and foremost. And through that, inspiring my community to step into the space of spirituality with me and to start doing decolonial work and destigmatizing the taboo subjects in Latinx spirituality. So through that right there, I was able to then figure out, wow, I can start creating workshops. I can create online classes. I can create events. I can do collabs with the people that I'm bringing on. And so the mission is going to help you figure out what sort of pillars you can start branching out to create profit. Is that PDFs? Is that e-guides? Is that workbooks? Is that events? Is that live podcasting events where people just want to come in and sit in, and watch you talk, and you just charge them? People love that. Next, second, how are you serving your community? So how can we create profit here? How are you serving your community? Figure out, are there services now that you can start branching out that the podcast has inspired you to do to serve to your community? You can give some of these services for free, which is a great low-hanging fruit, whether it's a free ebook, a free workbook, a free online webinar with you, an in-person workshop to reel them in, to give them resources, to have them buy into you, to start welcoming your presence to them so they start falling in love with you. And then from there, you can funnel them further down into your sales funnel, whether it's offering a free resource or a very low hanging fruit, cheap resource that's affordable. And then you can circle back with these people and start leveraging and charging a little bit more for things that are higher profit, things that have higher integrity and higher abundance and deeper meaning behind it that they'd want to invest back into you and your business. So that leads us into number 3, resources and tools. Are there tools you can offer them? that you can consult your community, your podcasting community on. In your area of expertise, can you become a consultant? Can you start getting hired to become a speaker as someone who is an expert in that space, not just in podcasting, but let's say you're podcasting in health and wellness, or you're podcasting in food, a food critic, you name it. So start sitting with and generating ideas, in my 1-year plan, in my 5-year plan, or within 6 months from here, or my vision board through my podcasting. My end goal is I want to be seen as this sort of personality, this sort of leader, this sort of engineer in this space. And the podcast is going to help me get to that. And that's how you're going to funnel back into your business. At the end of your footnotes of your podcasting episodes, I do this all the time. Sign up for this free workshop. Sign up for my email newsletter. At the very least, get your website up, get a blog up, or just put together an old school, Google Doc link where you can link it after every episode and say, hey, you want to sign up for my email newsletter? And you just keep collecting emails that way. That is an easy way to start funneling people and foot traffic to your website, to your business, and then further creating profit as the end goal. And then once you start getting your rhythm down and you develop an audience, you want to start advertising and doing paid ad campaigns. And you can do this with brand deals, collaborations with peers, and then eventually you can start becoming a content creator through your podcast as well. Okay, as we start wrapping this up, visibility is key. Don't talk to an empty room. You don't know how many people I know who have worked with who have a podcast and they're not promoting it. They're just throwing it up there like on Twitter, and you're like, I'm just going to tweet this out and hope to God someone interacts with this tweet. I hope to God someone listens to this episode that I put so much effort and love into, that I'm really passionate about. Marketing, social media, and your digital footprint. What do I mean by that? Your digital footprint. Get a website up. Even if it's a free website, you can host a free website on Wix, wix.com, wix.com. Create your own website. Buy your own domain, okay? You can purchase it through Wix. They can host it. You can buy it through them. Create a website for your podcast. Create social media for your podcast. For me personally, I have a personal brand, Esoteric Essa. And so through that brand, I host the podcasting content. But you want to make sure you start creating social content. Put your episodes out there on social media and market it. Go to events. Event marketing is the best. Go to other podcasting events, other events in your field of work, your line of work, and connect with other content creators, other influencers. Go to summits, go to conferences. You are your walking billboard. It is your responsibility to promote yourself. It is your responsibility to market yourself. No one else is going to do it. And if at the very least you have a little bit of budget, I always tell students, when I first started my business, I had only $5 to be able to market through Facebook advertising. And I would just throw up $5 behind a post to promote my podcast. Or to promote, an extension of one of the podcast goals or initiatives. And it worked. All you really need is $3 or $5 to at least start getting brand awareness. You want brand awareness. What does that mean? You want your brand, your podcast to be positioned in front of audiences and people you don't know, who are new to you, who will love you, who will become affinity brand advocates, who will start listening to your podcast. And collaborations are key. Going on to other people's podcasts, having other people on your podcast, doing a swap, a trade, an episode for an episode. You promote mine, I promote yours. On my podcast, we'll do episode 1, and on yours, we'll do 2.0, so we can link people back to each other. So it's cohesive, so it flows. So it's like, hey, come to Esoteric Essa's podcast episode for the first half of this conversation, and then follow up with my podcast for the second half of the conversation where I host her, then vice versa. So collaborating with community is so important. Allowing community to help you grow is really the biggest way you're going to get expansion with your podcasting. Don't be afraid to ask people to collab. You might get rejected. You probably will, especially when you're, growing and first up and coming. People might not see the value yet, but just put yourself out there, work past the fear and say, hey, pitch yourself. Hey, you want to collab? Or, hey, can I at least host you? And, I can host you and I can promote your upcoming services or whatever it is that you have, as long as it aligns with your podcast mission. And, at the very least, can you just promote it? Promote it on your socials for me. And make sure you get a podcasting speaker agreement locked in place. You always want something in paper written that you guys have a mutually beneficial working relationship together if you're going to host other people. So don't forget to stream Better Work Bid podcast, 2-time People's Choice Awards winner, everywhere podcast stream. And now I would love to take your questions. Thank you so much for listening to me.